Welcome, Platinum Universe, to our decision recap for Decision 2. Decision 2 it saw some minor changes, but important changes in that red and blue, who are somewhat neck and neck, split further apart. We'll see that in our results in a second. Red stayed close to positive EBIT in all four lines, managing all four lines as a portfolio and doing well, but not picking a single line where they're going to exceed and excel in. So they did good. They're a solid number 2. Blue invested heavily in family and image to start with, but kept their investments positive in low cost and eco. Instead of talking through all these, let me share my screen and we'll jump between sections here as I access them. So this will be a little jumpy, but hopefully we'll cover all the important parts. Here we have the general results. As you can see, blue is doing absolutely fantastic, a solid number 1 in EBIT. They're positive ROCE or ROCE. And red did great in low cast and good in family. They did not do too bad. They did not get killed in eco. However, they had been doing really good in image and dropped there, as did yellow. Yellow increased their losses in all three because of a combination of lost orders over inventory, marketing decisions, and most especially the sliders related to especially family and image in terms of what they need in terms of dealerships here and in terms of engineering here. And because of the high capex with the major slider changes by yellow, they got into, as many teams do at this stage, into a lot of cash trouble. And we'll see that in the cash as we look closer. When you look at current cash, when you see that either 1899 or 19,000, as we do here in yellow, it signals that a government loan was taken out. And so you can see our total loans of 12 and 12, all of a sudden, you can see yellow jumping up to 20 because they required an additional loan of $8,000 from the government. That's why this is at 19 in terms of current cash. So that happens when there's a very deep plunge on retained earnings and ROCE. And you can see that this actually happened with yellow. Due just to some major changes instead of minor changes, especially in image and somewhat in family. So they're kind of going the right direction, but trying to invest too much in too many things, and that really nailed their cash flow. Blue is doing absolutely fantastic because they've really put the resources into family and image, but did not shut down the plants in eco and low cost, have good employee morale. And you can see how just nailing it with income. Red is doing great too. There's nothing wrong with their sales revenue. It's great, but they took a real bath in terms of ARE and EBIT this time just because of what happened in image. They lost a huge amount of EBIT in image, and that's of course got to do with what's driving the cost per unit and the unit distribution across the installed base. So that's the cash, the loan, uh, the leverage position, which you can see is tough for yellow, but yellow can still come back if they're made some minor corrections in terms of especially image, and then continued their investment in low cost, which you're doing well in, but stop the bleeding in family. So again, backing off on the ones you're not doing well in, as you can see here, and enhancing the ones you are doing well in. Here's the story in low cost, where everybody is fairly even. Yellow is a little negative, and blue and red are almost identically positive. So you can see what's happening here with price and why red is doing okay due to share, but this is a huge, huge difference in price here. And price is less elastic and low cost than an image, but it's still elastic, meaning you have to come closer. A little change in price means a big change in demand. So you really have to be careful of what happens if you have good demand already and you lower the price and all of a sudden the demand goes way up. How can you do with your supply? How many do you have left to sell? We look at LOI, especially in low cost for red, as kind of what happened, and in the sliders. So it's again, this what's the story with yellow? Yellow's not doing that bad. They're in positive territory here, and you just have to look at where what is their share as a percent, which is here. All right, see the big difference there, 55, 31, 40. It's almost a deep slide there in terms of where their demand has gone. And nobody is over investing in lower cost, so that's to be expected. But the Rose is really interesting here because you can see that yellow really dropped in EBIT and then Rose and EBIT and then Rose both. And of course, nobody ever, it's a turnaround, so nobody ever gets um, retained earnings right, completely right. But again, capacity looks like fairly similar in all three, just like results do, and you'll see a very different story in capacity. Inventory, of course, is building really high in yellow, which means we're producing a lot more than we can sell, which is really hard on the cash. And so the lost orders over inventory you'll see on that chart that yellow under low cost goes way up into inventory. Blue is fairly moderate right in the middle, and red is dipping down a little, as you'll see with plant capacity. So the evolution is shows blue is just blue and red are just about dead on in terms of how they're matching, but yellow still has some work to do there. Jumping into family, real story here in family is that yellow got really killed in terms of top line revenue, and this drove the cash needs because of investing in it with the plant capacity. And and you can see on the EBIT here what happened, where they were just absolutely the opposite of blue in terms of EBIT. And red did okay, but not as well as last time in terms of our family and image going to really be their two main lines. And if it's image, that's what dropped red down this time, as we'll see, in terms of their investment versus what the return was, especially with engineering appeal compared to blue. If we look at appeal with red right here, you'll see the huge difference here, even from yellow. So this is this whole story for red, although they're in positive EBIT, they're in somewhat trouble in terms of how they looked at their engineering versus their marketing, although marketing is not as bad between the 134 and 135 on appeal, but effective marketing appeal is yellow is really in more trouble. We're trying to get towards around 100% here. So you don't want too much appeal and not enough appeal. Let's see, where are we? Eco, where everybody usually gets absolutely destroyed. Yellow had a problem in eco, although you can just, if you look at marketing of trying to become the real eco leader, you can spend a lot of marketing and a lot on consumption, which is fuel efficiency for ego and for eco, and yellow had great results in emissions. Of course, I think they came in one or two there, so they're on the right track. It's just a matter of keeping an eye on especially gross uh, profit. Yes, there we go. You can see we dropped out of positive into negative territory there, and then that is also, of course, reflected in EBIT and then ROCE down here. So they got somewhat killed, not as bad as image, but also you can look at your build of inventory in this line where you invest a lot, but you're not selling it out. Your sales and revenues aren't there. You're not hitting the right appeals, and then check what that does to inventory. Wow, look at that difference. 21 versus 85. So blue is just nailing the supply demand, just really doing well and figuring out what do the customers want and how many should we make each period. We'll kind of look at the sliders to see what's that about. Now, drum roll, please, image. Wow. This is where yellow. Let's take a look at EBIT first, which we saw in the charts. Red also took a little bit of a bath, not horribly, but look at that. A huge drop in terms of that. So let's look at inventory down here. Yeah, 29,8,104. What a difference. Incredible spread now. We're starting to really see separation between the teams in terms of managing lost orders over inventory. And without further ado, we will go there. Let's look at that next. Here's our story in low cost, where remember the goal here is try to keep as straight a line as we can on the zero line. The more we do that, the more we're balancing supply and demand, and we're really figuring out how many do we need, because what will our demand be next period? With small changes, and it's not as much about put way more money in here or way less money in there, and big slider changes in engineering marketing. It's much more like what is our supply and our demand? Watch our bottom line. What is happening with cash as we make these CapEx changes? And what kind of supply in relatively small amounts do we need for relatively good, small, profitable gains in terms of our revenue? So it doesn't matter if you blow out the revenue and you're the best, you just completely kill it in revenue if every sale is a loss. You're just having bigger and bigger losses, even though you're doing great in revenue. Same thing on the other side, if you're not selling any, but you're building, 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 and this is the story. Look what happened to Yellow. They had a huge number of lost orders. And so they really ganged up on production, but didn't sell them. So we had this huge inventory build. Red did the same thing. So what really happened is they both overcompensated. But what was the direction of their moves? They were right. I mean, blue was stay the course, keep it going, whereas red was, yeah, we got to get this even down. We've got to get this inventory sold. So we got to make a lot of stuff, but are we going to sell it or not? Are we going to have a lot of orders, but not have the deliveries and sales? So we're losing all those orders that we actually could have made and could have sold because we didn't. Those orders, the gap between what we got in orders from doing marketing, a lot of marketing, and then what we could deliver didn't happen. So we overcommitted here, did a great job of it's just too big a change, little less change, and it would have been more like like that. Okay. Same thing with yellow. Great idea. You made decisions that were right, but overcompensated there. And that's a story that happens a lot in low cost. Now, family and image are kind of different stories in terms of their importance to revenue because there's still cash cows still growing. So if you can see red and blue both did, I mean, blue did great. They were almost again straight across the line, but red did great compensation of getting towards zero. Yellow again overcompensated. They were high, and instead of flattening it out or bringing it up like blue did and down like red did, they kept on building the inventory, making the plant capacity work, but without getting the sales and orders, not without having the marketing to match what they were building. So they built up a huge amount of inventory, and that can be fatal in family. That can just eat a huge amount of cash in family or in image. Most people kill themselves on eco because it's so hard to get that balance. And indeed, this is the zero line down here. Don't forget. So blue, although you're saying, oh no, blue got some lost orders. No, they got to the right direction and they even made a profit in eco, which is very unusual at decision 2 or even 3. Usually by decision 3, decision 4 in that bracket, yes, then eco is cooking, image and family back up a little bit, and by decision 5, all bets are off. It's a whole different thing. You have to watch that video because something changes there that where the last place can become first at the end. due to certain changes in engineering, and that I won't get into because it won't help you with decision three. And I just want to focus on decision three now. So again, blue did great in the right direction. Just be careful not to keep going down that trend line. Now flatten out, stay close to your zero line. But excellent move on everybody's part. Red did the same thing. They did very well. They didn't overbuild in inventory, but they won't. They didn't go. They still have a lot of inventory. They didn't back down over lost orders past the zero line, whereas yellow continued to build the inventory. And that's not unusual in eco, and none of it is huge. Where it's huge is an image. Our main cash flowing entity here, uh, red did much worse than last time by not by shooting up like yellow and actually getting government loan and losing all the cash, but but too big of changes in image in terms of their inventory build compared to staying even. And you can see just why is blue making so much money and in positive territory. This really tells the story. LOI, balancing supply and demand, is so important, especially with CapEx. And CapEx, people have just learned in the last 10 years how important CapEx is to cash flow, that you can just kill yourself like yellow did if you're not investing in capex and you're making more than you sell, or you're marketing so high that you're not you're getting a lot of orders but you're losing them because in this case that's the opposite. They're building a lot of inventory, so they're making it but they're not selling it, so it requires a better match, especially in image and family. And we can kind of look at the sliders and say what happened there. So without further ado, let's take a look at that. And as we get into that, this is the ranking for our second decision. And we mostly look at who's number 1, 2, and 3 when we don't have 7, 10, 15 teams. And the lower the number, the better. Because if you have all number ones in all 6 of these, then you'd be 6. You would be as low as you could be, which is number 1 in all 6, which would be numerically 6. So yellow beat blue in emissions. Red did great. And sort of the gap widened here and the gap widened here. So that's how it ends up looking like blue, red, yellow. Let's go back to individual decisions. Look at yellow a little bit. Let's look at low cost and see and say, why did they remain pretty even with the other teams and do okay with low cost? You can see the sliders in low cost are somewhat close to the market line here. They did a good job of doing that. And we can look at the budgets in a minute and see how that changed in terms of low cost. Also, where did the share go in terms of their forecast? And take a quick look at the budget in terms of price. And we'll look at price compared to unit costs and see what's driving those unit costs. Family, again, yellow did a great job of matching the needs of the customers with the trend line. And so you're saying, well, what happened, with the finances? Well, the finances in terms of family and what was invested in family and where the inventory went to compared to the marketing made a huge, huge cash gap. And look at engineering fields up there, look at marketing, we're close to the first experience, but the dealership proximity here is a real problem uh, for family, because family needs dealerships. Eco-friendly, again, not too bad. Now, there's a bit of a loss in a gap that you can see here where they went compared to where the market went because of an investment in family and a bigger investment in design. Image, where there was quite a bit more of a gap and a loss and a great buildup in inventory. The sliders are not all that bad. They were small changes, but marketing is a problem. Won't get deeply into that. And then the budget is a major issue in image when we look at, especially when we look at corporate. So let's jump over to corporate. What happened with the pricing and the price period here for yellow versus the others in terms of orders, sales volume, cost of goods sales, everything that what it took to make all that, and then the what happened here to the bottom, what happened to the bottom line. Let's go back and look. 107, 36, 10, and a total of 26. Look at the balance there. 7 and 10. Now let's go back. The image and look at our cost of goods sold and look at our marketing expense compared to our gross profit. And remember, this is especially in family and image, where your EBIT has to remain strong. But then what happens when you look down at capacity and cash and free cash flow, you'll see what happened in facility investment and then free cash flows that required versus their cash used compared to the free cash flow available, what happened in terms of the need for the government loan in yellow versus blue and red. You'll see the difference. The cash at start was 19 because this 16 went way over cash available, and so we had to get the government loan to make up for it. And you can see that this is building up to the point where the cash available is much lower. It was at 7,000. It's now down to 2,000. So again, re-engineering, looking at the engineering and especially in low cost and eco versus family and image will give a great indication for yellow where they need to back off on the engineering and go up on marketing in order to level off, especially family and image losses. Now I have just kind of looking at what happened. I'm trying not to comment too much on it so I don't give everything away. You can look at these numbers and figure out what's happening, but let's look at red. Low cost. Red is not doing bad, but you can see a little bit of a mismatch there, right? Now we come to family where red was doing better, and yet they're not doing too bad, but you can see where the overinvestment is and the underinvestment is in terms of especially number of models. You can see that that's an issue for red in family. Eco, red lost a little, didn't do too bad, but you can see where they made decisions in technology and consumption because of that need in eco and what the market really needed there in terms of bigger moves on the sliders, especially with consumption. There's a huge jump in change there. It's important, but it has to remain moderate. So you can see here, red is, especially now that we're getting to image where the cash cow is, they're doing a little bit of over and under fitting in terms of trying to make where the market goes and where you go low, I go high. We do great together on size, but in other parameters, I go high and you go low, I go low and you go high. So these gaps in here are absolutely fatal. And you could see that in the other teams that on some of the lines, the gaps were almost non-existent, but others, they were very similar to what happened with red here in image. So this is easily correctable, by the way, for all three teams. So if I'm not giving too much away, you can see exactly what you need to do to make up for what happened in terms of EBIT that's driven by the marketing and the CapEx budgets. These are orders for the 4 lines. You can see what's happening, what's going up and what's going down based on each of the lines' response to the investment in the market, as well as their natural decay or growth. Decay in the case of family and image, growth in the case of low cost and eco. Orders versus sales. You can see the natural differences here as we looked in lost orders over inventory at each of the different lines. What was happening there naturally by the natural process of volume and of revenue. So you can see the natural decline of each line that should be declining and a little bit of growth of eco-friendly, which should be happening by this period. Now, what's driving our orders? Orders in low cost. Orders in family. Look at blue and look at yellow. Orders in eco. And now, very importantly, orders in image. Who's flat, who's declining, and why? Saw orders, what about sales volume? In low cost, you saw orders versus sales. Family, eco, and image. What is driving the orders? Low cost. How much has it got to do with effective engineering, the volume itself, the price, and effective marketing? What you want to see is exactly what you're seeing with blue here. Red is good and close, and yellow is not bad in low cost. But if you start to look at family, what's driving the orders? Let's see what's happening with yellow here. Let's see what happened with the trend of yellow here and where yellow's there at compared to blue, blue, red, red, and blue here. And blue splitting the difference there. Eco. Again, we're going to look at what drives orders, what drives sales, and then what drives costs. Because unit costs are going to get us to EBITDA. And cash is very important in getting our CapEx right with LOI. Now, finally, image. These are so you can take screenshots and use them in your final paper and report. Because you can compare them to each other and then especially to EBIT. So now if you're looking at EBIT image compared to what happened with yellow and red compared to blue, you can say, wow, there's the effective engineering. There's the effective marketing. That's very important in image. Price, of course, it's less sensitive to price, but you have to strike a balance there. What about cost? We saw lost order over inventory. What's driving cost? Let's get back to low cost. What's driving the unit costs in each team, and who's managing their unit costs? How effective is the engineering spend versus CapEx? And we won't worry about the learning curve. But facility capacity and low cost is very important. Look at the facility capacity there compared to family compared to eco-friendly. This one will shock you. Let's look at eco. There's a huge difference with yellow right there in eco, where yellow took a strong loss. And finally, image and capacity. Who's building a huge amount of inventory and why? And this is almost reverse of the standings. If you flip this slide over, you'll see how important facility capacity is in image in driving who comes out number 1, 2, and 3. That's a huge hint for decisions, especially 3 and 4. 5 is something completely different, but all right, we didn't look at, well, we've seen ROS, we've seen that. Unit cost is important too. In terms of how are we doing on cost versus revenue versus price, and to get into the positive EBIT territory we want to be in. Low cost, family. Watch yellow here, eco-friendly. And look at the trend as well as where it ended up. So are your costs flat? Are you lightening up on costs, or are you increasing your costs? That's really important for your looking at your ROSA. And then we've got positive or negative bottom line for all three in terms of who spent a lot more money and got better returns or close to better returns per period from the starting point. And our starting point that we inherited the company at compared to where are we taking it to with a straight line there. The goal, of course, is to do better. And red's close to doing better. Yellow was doing better and can do better. And blue is doing much better than the predecessor owners of this company. Ending where we started, our work is cut out for us. We can always see the story between Rose and by EBIT and see by business unit. And we could look at the main for all of them and see where do we need to focus our investment and where do we need to make cost corrections, our course corrections and cost corrections. And what can especially, red's not doing bad. Red is really right on the borderline here. We just need to fix a little bit of what's going on in the image, and I gave a lot of hints on that. Blue needs to maintain the course. It's very, very unusual to be at this stage and do this well in eco. And it was very unusual for blue to be in initial positive rose territory right into with decision 1. That's very unusual. So keep your eye on low cost blue. Don't blow it in image. Keep doing what you're doing, and watch the gas price. Watch the business index and the gas price on your landing pages, because you'll see something new when we turn this back on Sunday night, Monday morning. You'll see a new number for the gas prices. Make sure it doesn't kill you in image. With that, we will see you next time. Thank you.